Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Daz.
Office Bloke Aidan.
Here we are on the sports edition of Office Bloke Daz and family.
We are.
If sports is for you, don't forget to like and subscribe, please. It does help us grow, and we do really appreciate it, don't we?
We do.
In fact, whoever subscribes, we're going to buy everyone a beer
Whee!
in the local pubs. You've got to make your way down there. And, the most hated quarterback in NFL history.
I have no idea who that
I don't know who it could be. I have no idea. Could be anyone, I guess. I don't know many of them personally. Although we have been watching the quarterback on our Patreon actually. So that's for you. Check it out, yeah. And them three that's on there: Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Mariota. Yeah, very very nice people. You couldn't hate them if you tried.
There's definitely loads of people that don't like Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, unless you're from the other team. But he's a cool guy, man. On that quarterback, he comes across a really nice guy.
Yeah, I like Patrick Mahomes. Yeah.
But the best guy is Kirk Cousins. He's a proper true All-American hero.
Down-to-earth guy.
He's
really,
just proper he's so wholesome as a family. The whole family, everything about them is just America. Innit? Proper the way he dresses, everything about him. Brilliant, great family.
Quarterbacks are never really hated, really, are they? You wouldn't.
Bet there's some knobheads.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, Michael Vick had his issues, didn't he?
I don't know.
He had his issues outside of the game. He was very, very good quarterback, but he had his issues with. I think he went to jail for dogfighting.
He was fighting dogs.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. Anyway, let's get into it. The most hated quarterback in NFL history.
Who's it going to be?
Jeff George was one of the most talented rocket arm quarterbacks to ever play the position. His one defect. He was kind of an asshole. He butted heads with coaches and management, never endeared himself to teammates, was hated by two different teams, both in his hometown, hated by another team, insulted his own fans, taunted opposing fans, got mooned by his ex-fans, called his own plays, and cussed out his coach on the sideline. He was so hated, fans heckled his grandmother at games. He also attempted comebacks 3 different times. And maybe he wasn't all that bad of a guy? Let's find out. The most hated QB in NFL history is coming up right after this. This video is sponsored by an all-in-one option that stick to them. Buy that new Rocket's /5 rocketmoney.com/5
I love the way this 5 points guy said
from
he
the
was
link
an
below
arsehole.
to start getting your
funny,
finances from the get-go in order today. Jeff George's talent was apparent from the get-go. He was named the 1985 USA Today National Player of the Year while representing Warren Central High School in Indianapolis. Believe it or not, he was actually teammates with Jason Whitlock, who still hasn't figured out the concept of targeted advertising. Even with Stephen A. Smith's arch nemesis roaming the locker room, George tossed an astounding 45 touchdowns as a senior, locking up the 1985 Dial Award as the National Scholar Athlete of the Year. George wanted to start in college. He wanted to start right away. That meant turning down offers from UCLA and a powerhouse institution at Miami if it meant going somewhere he could be QB1 in year 1. It was also important to George that he be near his family. So George committed to Purdue, where the quarterback experienced mixed results in 7 starts, and the Boilermakers finished the year with a 3-8 record. With the appointment of new head coach Run First Fred Akers, George initially declared his intention to transfer to Miami, but ultimately enrolled at Illinois. His decision to leave Purdue resulted in the sale of anti-George t-shirts at the university bookstore, and some individuals in Indiana still hate him for it. They'd get another chance to hate him again. When he traveled back to Purdue for a game his senior year at Illinois, the Boilermakers greeted him with ass. No, not the he got game Jesus Shuttlesworth kind. 15 different Purdue fraternity brothers mooned George upon his arrival, but the 30-cheek salute only inspired the Illini to defeat them in a 14-2 Iowensian classic. The Indianapolis Colts, thinking that hometown boy George would be the right fit, selected him number 1 overall in the 1990 NFL Draft. But that came at a price. The Colts traded valuable assets to move up to get him, including Pro Bowl offensive tackle Chris Hinton, promising wide receiver Andre Rison, and 2 draft picks. George secured the largest rookie contract in NFL history at the time, getting paid $15 million over 6 years with a $3.5 million signing bonus. Despite possessing a howitzer for an arm, the first thing Indy fans noticed, he was a giant asshole. By 1993, he had lost 35 of 49 starts with 41 TD passes and 46 INTs, engaging in conflicts with the front office, Coach Ted Marchibroda, teammates, and even the fans. A 7-week preseason holdout in 1993 and a rocky relationship with Marchibroda ensued. The holdout severely damaged his reputation in Indianapolis. Radio and TV stations camped out outside of his house. Local liquor stores advertised Jeff George wine with an H, in their windows. Ted Marchibroda was critical of his starting quarterback, insisting that he dropped back too nonchalantly and relied too much on his arm. That's been it, Marchibroda said to ESPN in 2001. Outside of the arm, I don't know what he really believes. It's like he doesn't accept help beyond what his arm is able to do for him. He also never clicked with his teammates, whereas most quarterbacks try to buddy up with their offensive linemen, buying them anything from beer.
Did you ever sort of like, I don't recall any players that we've had in teams we've supported over the years where fans have turned on them to call them
Why did you
arsehole.
say the teams we've supported over the years? Like, there's multiple.
England, City,
Right.
cricket teams, football, not just necessarily English soccer teams, but cricket, right. All different types of sport. I can't think of one where you criticise the player as a fan. I mean, I've criticised players, don't get me wrong, but I've never gone against them, or we've never had players at City, for example. We've never had players that we argue with, have we?
No.
Craig Bellamy's probably the closest.
Okay. But like, did you see that Sheffield United when the 2 players on the pitch started fighting?
No.
Against Wolves.
I heard about it. I didn't see it.
They started pushing each other and trying to grab each other's t-shirts and all that, and then Wolves players had to break it up.
Yeah, it happened once with Newcastle as well. With can't remember his Lee Bowyer and someone else with Newcastle. Can't remember his name now. But yeah, it does happen.
You would never you never hear City fans start booing a City player at the stadium.
No, do you
know what I mean?
No, it wouldn't happen, would it?
But obviously, it would take a lot to have to you'd have to come out and start roasting the fans.
Yeah,
or something.
you'd have to say something bad, wouldn't you?
And even if you did, you wouldn't even play on the pitch anyway.
But I don't even remember seeing it in any sport really. So this is like a first for me, where someone's sort of getting. I know it's old as well, going back to 1990, so it's going back quite a few fair years. But it's because the modern day fans do that? I don't think I've seen it much, but. This Jeff George, he keeps called him an arse a few times.
He might, if he is just an arsehole, it's like, even if you're the fan of that team, it's like, oh well, he's our arsehole. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
when
exactly.
You say that, it's like everyone else will hate him, but you got to love him if he plays for you.
But this guy sounds like he's against the world.
Yeah.
To watch us for protecting their blind side, that just wasn't George's style. One Colt teammate said the guy was sort of poison, just negative. He's just a baby. He thought he was hot shit. Nobody liked him. And he was surrounded by sycophants, family and friends, telling him how great he was. George preferred the company of his family. His very large family. Colts coaches, including Marchibroda, believe that he spent too much time with his family, choosing to eat dinner with them every Saturday night instead of with his teammates, creating a void in leadership. It didn't help that fans heckled Jeff George's grandmother at games, despite his OC actually liking him and saying he was a delight to coach. By 1994, the decision was clear. George had to go. The disgruntled quarterback was traded to Atlanta in March. Although the Colts may have wished the Falcons had taken George in the first place, the departure did yield a positive outcome, a 1996 first-round pick used to select Syracuse wide receiver Marvin Harrison. To be fair, the Colts failed George. Despite the blame often placed on the quarterback, the team's 1-15 record in 1991 and 146 sacks in 4 seasons suggest a more complex situation than just an inefficient signal caller. One of George's only advocates, former strength and conditioning coach Tom Zupanchik, sang praises about the QB's dedication in the weight room, and said that George probably could have benefited from a PR representative. You know, the thing that most players have now. After parting ways with the Colts, George's career took various turns, often frustrating fans and coaches with amazing talent and seemingly immature behavior. When Jeff George arrived with the Falcons, left guard Lincoln Kennedy expected to meet a total jerk, but was surprised, calling him a cool guy and somebody you would want to block for. George had also shed 15 pounds in the offseason and shaved his cookie duster, making him look less like an adult film star. In his first season with the Falcons, he achieved a career-high 62% completion rate. A year later, he set a career high with 4,143 passing yards and might have found a permanent landing spot if he had kept his mouth shut. Seeking to establish roots in Atlanta, the QB had founded the Jeff George Foundation to assist abused and underprivileged children. While head coach June Jones and Falcons vice president of player personnel Ken Herrock envisioned George as the long-term quarterback solution, Falcons president Taylor Smith remained unconvinced. Despite many negotiations, the best offer from the Falcons was a backloaded 5-year, $25 million contract, taken by George as hesitancy. Consequently, Jeff George settled for a 1-year, $3.6 million contract in 1996. Despite George still considering Jones a close friend, the reality is that the coach allowed his quarterback's behavior to go unchecked, contributing to George's downfall. Then, the incident happened.
These guys are going at it.
Yep. Oakland's looking closer for Jeff George.
And that kind of conversation may seal his fate.
George's public and profanity-laced outburst at Jones after being benched during a nationally televised loss to the Philadelphia Eagles spelled the end for George in Hotlanta. Jones would say, "I would be less than a man if I took what Jeff said to me, and the team knows it." Following the tirade, Jones suspended George the next day, and the Falcons released him in mid-October. George, who was benched against the Eagles after throwing an interception, acknowledges his responsibility for the incident, but adds, "I saw the benching as them giving up on the whole season. There was still one man willing to take a chance on the cast-off former #1 overall pick, Al Davis. Who would have thunk it?" And George's arrival in silver and black was magic. A career-high 29 touchdowns, just 9 picks, and a league-leading 3,900 yards for the Raiders. The only problem, they only won 4 games. By 1999, the Raiders had hired a guy named John Gruden, and George's fit into the West Coast offense wasn't exactly seamless. Yes, the first Gruden stint where he had a more secure email server. George willfully ignored play calls from his offensive coordinator, eventually pulled his groin, and announced to a local radio station that he was done for the year. His arch as a fallen journeyman was well underway. George had a successful stint with the Minnesota Vikings in 1999, leading them to the playoffs with an 8-2 record as a starter, finally dropped in an offense packed with playmakers at his disposal. He posted an elite 8.5 yards per attempt.
His resume is not that bad, really, is it?
In those 10 starts, and led.
But he's not getting the wins, is he?
He's not getting the wins, but his resume, his passing yards and stuff like that, don't seem that bad.
Well, what did he say? Like when he said his first season was like 41 touchdowns and 46 interceptions.
I think he said 146 over 4 seasons, didn't he? Sacks. But that's not necessarily his fault. That's not his fault.
It can be.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's again, you need a decent line in front of you, don't you?
Yeah, but at the same time, you also got to release it quicker.
Yeah.
Led the Vikings to the only win of his playoff career, toppling
Then at the same time, the receivers have to get open, so it could be anyone's fault.
It's all combo that goes into it, isn't it?
the Cowboys by 17 points. So why didn't he stick around in Minnesota? The Vikings were interested in running it back, but they had an ace up their sleeve in rookie quarterback Dante Culpepper, and George eventually became an afterthought to a team that was ready to take the next step with a younger gunslinger. He was actively told by his head coach to shop around, and shop around he did. It never worked in Washington, whether it was with Marty Schottenheimer or Norv Turner, who didn't even allow George to audible at the line. In 7 starts over 2 years, he won just 1 game, throwing more picks than touchdowns. His final action in the NFL was a 37-0 loss to the Green Bay Packers. After 12 seasons in the league, it was over. Or was it? 5 years after taking his last snap at the age of 39 and visibly balding, George was signed by the Raiders in 2006 for a chance to compete for the 3rd-string QB job. And then 5 days later, he was cut. If he couldn't compete in a quarterback room with Andrew Walter, how could he even really make it back? it was really over. Or was it? In 2007, George was insisting that he could make a comeback at age 40 with the Vikings, even going as far as to call Minnesota's play-by-play announcer Paul Allen to see if he could gauge whether or not the team had any interest. They did not. A year later, George kept prodding the Vikings and even the Cowboys, insisting he still had his fastball. Unfortunately, that truly was the end for him. He may have seemed a little eager to get back into football, but once he settled into retirement, he's grown up. George returned to his hometown and became a community activist, always willing to help his local church and his local high school. Jeff George was a complicated player. It would be untrue to call him an asshole or a locker room cancer. He was likely more selfish than immature, so maybe the hate was unwarranted. And if you knew the real Jeff George, you wouldn't insult his grandmother or moon him. Until next time.
Anything new, they didn't like me when I was here, and they obviously don't like me now.
More to it, I think, isn't there?
Interesting, that, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is interesting. He's like I say, he didn't seem to have like a bad resume as such, but he spent 12 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's not,
But when you're like 40, you're like, just give it up, mate. You know what I mean? When you've already been like dropped and like kicked after 5 days from someone else prior.
I mean, you're gonna have players who are insanely good at the age of 40, like Tom Brady's of the world, and Aaron Rodgers and people like that. That are knocking on that door.
It's time for other people that are coming through.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at some
especially
of the young
when
ones,
he's like not done anything for.
No, he's never done it. He's never won anything, has he?
Yeah.
He's never sort of like been there.
It's sort of like bringing the Dallas Cowboys at age 40, like they're going to be desperate for him in the 90s.
But
that was actually like late, like probably like 2000. So
2000, 2007. Cowboys could have done with him probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers.